This is RuggaMatrix International, episode 188, TMO Report Card. As always, RuggaMatrix is brought to you by Strike, Australia's leading provider of Bluetooth car kits and other handheld devices. Make sure you get your cradle today. If you get caught, it could cost you big time. Strike.com.au will give you 10% off if you enter the code RuggaMatrix on checkout. So make sure you look after your driving today. Check out strike.com.au. RuggaMatrix also brought to you by mybean.com.au. Coffee direct from the roaster to you, and they sell at roasters' prices. Hello and welcome to the show. Had a few weeks off and I am solo today. No Mark Cashman, who will be back next week. And we had a lot of great rugby over the weekend. Heineken Cup, of course, decided. Matt Gitto and Drew Mitchell flying the flag for the Aussies. And of course, we got other competitions decided. And the Test series in the Southern Hemisphere is almost upon us. But today, it's all about the whistleblowers, the referees who do the hard job. And I'm happy to say our legendary Australian referee who recently retired, World Cup referee, international test referee, Stuart Dickinson, is our special guest on RuggaMatrix International. Stu, welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Giro. Great to be here. What a great little studio it is.
Yeah, it is. And there you are, over the shoulder, some of the fine images from SMP over the years of you giving it to the boys. I haven't put a Richie McCaw shot in there, though, but we might talk about that later, mate. How you been?
Mate, well, going well. Enjoying retirement away from refereeing and spending time with the family, which is really important, and just enjoying actually owning a weekend. So for the first time in 30 years, I would imagine, something like that, of actually being able to say, somebody says, what are you doing in August or September? Whatever we like.
Yeah, so, that's great.
Which is great.
I'd love to get a weekend off, but it's still not happening for me, mate. So it's good to see you doing well too in the corporate sector. Quickly, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, working with an organisation called J&J Associates. So I'm the marketing and sales manager for our Australia East Coast business. And so we're a global organisation and really working around high performance. So it's with leaders and organisations around creating, helping them, support them in creating high performance organisations around leadership, safety, culture, change management, and it's a really good segue from refereeing and high performance sport into this organisation. So great people doing lots of great work around the world.
And Stu, you've been all over the world, and that's the great thing about the game. We had an epic Heineken Cup final at the weekend, and when we talk on this show about games here and in Europe, there are style changes. And I guess it doesn't impact anyone more than a referee, because you grew up in Australia. You obviously like the fast, hard surfaces, and then quite often you're called to referee in Europe where games can be. And I don't think, and we've just talked about this before, it's not necessarily that they want to play a certain style that is limited to just heavy ruck play and a lot of scrummaging. Is that the weather plays a massive part. So you've had to go through all that different type of refereeing scenarios, and I guess a lot of it was away from home. Rarely did you, I guess, in a test environment, ever obviously referee Australia. That just doesn't happen.
No, look, it was, and you'd probably spend 4+ months of the year away at least. So I think we worked out over my career, I'd probably spend about 4 or 5 years away from home, but that's life. You ply your trade. I guess I was lucky enough with the refereed the Wallabies once when they played the Barbarians out here, and then was lucky enough to referee in the 2003 World Cup at home. So you do spend that time over there, and there's the point you made around the difference in conditions. Certainly over the years that's changed, because you've got whilst the conditions remain the same in terms of rain or hail or sleet, whatever it may have been, the grounds they're playing on are so much better now, and of course from the teams themselves, obviously people want to be a bit more expansive and everything else there. So it's been really good to see that change inside of things, and then obviously the games we've seen with Heineken Cup and the Premiership as well. You've sort of got a bit of a difference in some games, but the the crowds, because of proximity, people can travel, and so they get that real tribalism about them, and it's brilliant. So I think well done to Drew Mitchell and Matty Giddo for a win there, and the other one is to pay tribute to a guy like Johnny Wilkinson after such a great career. I know he's got one more game this week. But what a gentleman off the field, and I was lucky enough to referee him a number of times. So to see him in his heyday as well was quite amazing.
What are one of the two of the standout moments with Johnny Wilkinson for you?
Oh, there's probably a couple
with the whistle though.
Yeah. I mean,
and what was he like to deal with?
Yeah, it looked terrific. Just a great competitor, and didn't say too much on the field. But I think one of the games I did in France, I think it was 2000, so it was France England, a Six Nations game, and England actually beat them there that time, and Johnny Wilkinson absolutely smashed Emile Ntamack at half time, and really sort of turned the tide of the game for them. And it was funny talking to them afterwards, and then Clive Woodward as well, as he'd come down and he was trying to address the troops for that 10 minutes, and all these blokes are just hooting and hollering and saying great hit and all those sort of things, because he could tackle the boy. Now when he's got sore shoulders, just amazing.
Great defender, Stu. There's no doubt about that. And I guess in your long career, you've seen a lot of change in the game, and one of the recent changes has been the TMO. Firstly, your thoughts on how it is going, and secondly, I'm asked about some specific events. But the TMO, has it evolved to a stage where we're going forward or backwards?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, with us starting that professional era, we were at the vanguard of change with that, actually creating the whole protocol and so on. So we've gone from a situation where you had limited use to then to actually having a wider power and still staying within the end goal, to then being able to now come outside and make some decisions outside there. And like any of those things, I guess as the game's flowed and grown, people want to get the right decisions all the time. But like anything you do, there's pros and cons with that. And I think some of those teething changes, they're probably seeing as a result of that.
Well, what do you think about going back 2 phases? If the phases are very quick, that's not a problem. But going back further and further in the game, I think does slow the game down. And I sort of laugh when people say that the third umpire, or the video, when they go upstairs in cricket, that it slows a game down. I mean, cricket goes for 5 days in Test cricket, so I don't think that's incredibly a dire situation for cricket. But in rugby, I was very frustrated that I found that I thought some of the referees were going overly cautious and going upstairs, and I think that hurts the game. I've got a thing to say about foul play, but your thoughts on going back further and further in the play, leading up to a try.
Yeah. Well, look, there's a number of things that come into the mix inside of all of that. I mean, we spoke originally around going back, and then they talked about 2 phases, and then we spoke about that try the Wallaby scored that Matt Burke was the eventual scorer after about 17 or 18 phases. So if you go back 2, well, was there a knock-on at the 3rd phase? And so you throw that into the mix. And then the other part is, at the end of the day, you're looking at why do you want to do it? What are you trying to achieve? Who's actually making those decisions?
What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to? You're never going to get everything right, but what's the ultimate goal?
So the ultimate goal, really, at the end of the time, is to make the right decision. And because our game is so fluid, then the other part is, it's not like, say, rugby league, where you say, right, we're going back 1 tackle to a definitive point. Yeah. Ours is, what do you look at? And so it became that one around, when they're about to throw the ball into, guys running for the corner, and he just puts a foot into touch and then throws the ball. Yeah. We all know what the right scenario is, but how do you put that into words? Is it the one pass behind that, or the next phase, or that last phase as they're going over the line? So that becomes a decision for all those stakeholders to make. And the one thing you can't do is leave somebody holding the can.
Yeah, absolutely, because everyone at home pretty much can see what the TMO sees. So there's a judgment being made, not just in that box, but all over the world. What do you think about the referee on the ground looking at the big screen? I mean, is that a good thing?
Well, again, it depends on the technology. I've heard some stories of the guys talking about some screens you can see really well and some you can't. So the first question is who has the ultimate accountability and responsibility in making that decision? And if it is the referee, then if I was making any decision about anything, I want to be pretty clear and have a clear picture of it. And if I haven't got a clear picture because the screen's not right, then you want to have that trust element of working with that person upstairs in the TMO box to then get that clarity of decision. And I think one of the other big things is, and you made the point originally, around are they going upstairs too much, relying on it, etc., etc. One of the things happened when we first started to bring this in, and I had a chat with Darryl Hare when he was umpiring the cricket, and he made a really good point around not losing the art of decision making, and I think that's what happens at times. I think you've seen that with the league guys now, where they'll just go in and it's just, here, just have a look at everything and tell me what happened. And that's got to permeate out to the next 80 minutes inside of your decision making, because you're not actually getting on the spot to make the decision. You're using it as a first tool of reference rather than I'll have it as a backup. And that becomes a different mind shift.
Yeah, it does. I think a couple of weeks ago we had the scenario where foul play was picked up in the last couple of seconds, and if you hadn't seen it, obviously the Reds game, the decision ended up with a penalty to the Rebels, and they won the game right on the bell. Now, a lot of people said they didn't want a game decided by a refereeing decision, which I sort of said on Twitter, well, it wasn't a refereeing decision, it was the fact that a player was accused of eye gouging or putting hands near the eyes, and the TMO brought the game back. Steve Walsh was the referee. Walsh, to me, didn't want to make the call, but he was dead set put into a situation where you had to say it was a red card offence, hands were near the eyes. And the IRB, as you know, said about 09, enough is enough. Anyone who has hands near the eyes is going to be pinged. Did Steve make the right decision in the TMO box that night?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, the first point you made is the correct one. They say we don't want a referee ruining the game. Well, the first point is let's stop going down that track. If the player didn't do what he did, you wouldn't have to make that decision. So that's the first case in point. The second part is safety, welfare of players is paramount. Forget about the laws of the game. The first thing when you go out there is safety of the players. From our point of view as referees, a former referee, and then from the point of view of each player looking after each other. So hence that thing around tip tackles and all those sort of things. So the first point is there really around the fact of, he made connection with the face, and you've got a short amount of time to see it irrespective of the replays. And at the end of the day, the correct decision was made. He was in and around the face there. Now, that's the decision that's made on the field, and it's backed up by the IRB and everybody else around that's the correct decision. So that's all it is. You're charged and put before the court. It's then up to the court to bring in all the other things they need to do about character and other angles, etc., etc., etc. The referees or the TMO don't have that at that, don't have as much time. They get different angles, of course, but don't have the days, weeks, hours to make that call. But the bottom line is the correct call was made around the player being sent off.
And of course, subsequently, the Sanzar Tribunal judiciary cleared Ed O'Donoghue of eye gouging and was free to play after that. So, but I think,
sorry, just a point with that on there as well is that he was cleared to play, and then the evidence that came out afterwards that the player who was the victim in that case actually gave a strong statement in support of him. So therefore, saying this hadn't whatever hadn't occurred, the eye gouge, he didn't actually get him in the eye, etc., etc., and that's fine, and that's what that judicial system is for. But on the field, the player in question didn't walk up to the referee and say no, everything's okay. Didn't give him any other information. So therefore, the decision that's made is correct. And if people take away the emotion out of it, because people are emotional, their team's lost, or it's the referee made the wrong call, whatever. That's another thing aside. The actual decision making and the process is what you want to look at. Was the decision correct? Was the process correct? It was. Okay.
Yeah, we've got to be clear here. He was subsequently cleared, but at the time, it's such a dramatic piece of potential foul play that you have to act. And I agree with the decision of the day. There was an earlier incident too that day in the Crusaders game that involved a stamping incident with one of the South African players, and it was picked up as well, and that was a red card. So I don't have a problem with the foul play being stamped upon, to use a pun, at that moment. To me, I think it deals with it straight away.
Yeah. Well, foul play is another issue. Forget about it being a try scoring or anything else. Foul play is foul play, and at the end of the day, if with anything inside of the game or anywhere is around leadership, and so somebody's got to make a stand for that. So what does the leadership, SANZAR, IRB, what do they actually want to do? And if they want to eradicate foul play, then make a stand. And the one thing that seems to be missing a lot of the time is that, and we used to have it all the time when we go to the SANZAR meetings, was there'd be players, coaches, everybody inside of their administrators and say, listen, we've got a problem with this, and this. You blokes go and fix it. Well, that's great, terrific. What about you guys? What are you going to do? So I'm not sure, I haven't seen the press afterwards, but has SANZAR or somebody come out and say the referees, the TMO, our process, our systems actually made the correct decision? Stop talking, stop whinging, stop whining. That's it, and that's where the leadership comes from.
Yeah, I think they should be given a rap. I mean, I gave a rap, but it's not up to me. I think, yes, the organisation should come out and really back their referees in this regard. So with the TMO then, what's the future of it? Because in the National Rugby League in Australia, they have empowered the referees to make a decision, and then it's up to the TMO or the video referee to come up with compelling evidence to overturn a decision. Now, they actually took their lead from other sports in that decision making. Do you think rugby's TMO is going to evolve further? Will we still have it? We saw in the NFL where they went back and forwards and all that sort of stuff. Where do you see it going down the track?
Well, I think the first thing is it's got to be a combined decision from the four pillars of the game, which is, actually you'd probably say a fifth there if you want to include the fans, if they want to get inside of that, which is what I understand they're doing with the National Rugby Championship. But you've got players, coaches, administrators, referees that need to sit down and work out, right, what are we going to do? Then you have an alignment. It's just a simple, really, it's a high-performance process. You then get alignment on what you're going to do, then come out and work with that process. And then there'll be flack around it. It's a bit like when they had in Queensland a couple of years ago, they had an unfortunate incident with a guy that got hit and passed away. And so Queensland just said, right, one punch, everything's a red card. They had 50 at the judiciary, then they had 40, then they had 30, then they had 20, then they had 10. It's because people actually made a stand and said, you can't do it. That's the way it is. So from the terms of the TMO, work out what you want to actually do with it and then stand by those decisions. For the future of it, for me, I think one of the most important things is it's got to be a tool that is a supporting tool, not at the forefront. Because at the end of the day, you may as well just have robots out there. The players will make mistakes. They do. You have 20 scrums in a game because people drop the ball. Referees will make mistakes. Absolutely. We've all made them. We'll make ones that are this big and then we'll make ones that are this big because we're all human. And that's the excitement of sport. So at the end of the day, you've got to be prepared to have that inside of the game and then work within some parameters that say, well, let's get the best decision available given the circumstances. It's impossible and impractical to go back 20 phases.
Yeah.
So sort out what are the most important issues to you. Foul play is one. Go back to wherever you need to go. You'll see it at that time. Then the other is about the act of scoring the try. Get that right. In terms of that, and what are those decisions you need there, and then have those referees making those decisions.
One problem I have is the forward pass. I just don't think there's an adequate, the TMO can adequately judge on that. I mean, that to me requires a lot of physics and grid marking to make sure that you get this right. So I think... I reckon that should go through to the keeper, forward passes. Yeah, look, I think the other thing is about it when Barry Honan made a video a number of years ago that actually had some lines on the field over 5 metres. I think it's on YouTube. Look it up. Barry Honan, YouTube, forward pass. And when you actually look, it's actually a parallelogram because you've got the two people running
one pass in there, and away they go.
Yes.
And so when you actually plot the ball, when he passes it here, the guy actually catches it in front because of the movement. Yeah. Same as if you throw something out a car as you're driving along, where you've thrown it from, it'll actually land forward, but you've thrown it backwards.
Well, it's amplified too if the passer of the ball is hitting the tackle and goes backwards and looks like, whoa, it's got a mile forward.
So, and it's a thing around the law is that as long as you pass the ball backwards, it doesn't matter where it goes after that. So you can have a strong wind, and you'll have things where it actually goes backwards out of the hands and then shoots across and goes forward. That's life. It's play on. So I mean, if you can get something that shows the hands, that's great. And I guess like anything in the refereeing side of things, it's around the clear and obvious. So if it's not clear and obvious, play on. And one of the other points I just wanted to make around that TMO moving forward as well is there was a number of years ago, a couple of us had a chat. So it was myself and Alan Lewis and Jonathan Kaplan, and talking around. It was probably back about 2007, and saying, well, why wouldn't you have a captain's challenge? Because we talk about it, and rightfully so, being the players' game, and let the players decide the game. There's an opportunity there to bring that side of things in. That if you look at the that quarter final with France and New Zealand in 2007, guys missed it. The laws of the day said, well, bad luck, it's gone. If you had a captain's challenge, and with players. When there's a lot of BS that goes on in terms of postulating of this, that, and the other, but when something serious happens, be it foul play or something in the game that's not quite right, the body language is right, the it's genuine, it's authentic, and so something like that. If you had a couple of challenges per half for a team, then why not? Because as I said, everyone's human. You do miss things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the Kiwis, how did you get on with the legend Richie McCaw, who Australians always think is offside all the time?
Oh, jeez. I've got
Kiwis.
Got the dubious honour of having binned him a couple of times. Look. I'm not sure I was his favourite referee, but that's okay.
Well, how did you get on with him after the game?
No, good. Always courteous. Look, he's a terrific individual, great bloke, amazing leader of men, and look, his record speaks for itself in what he's been able to do. I mean, you have a look at him having a break, coming back from injury, and then just playing like a man possessed. So he's an incredible individual for his achievements and everything else, and a superb and a great rugby player. Will go down as one of the greats in the game. So I have nothing but admiration and respect for him as an individual and as a player. Yep. Would we have had points of difference? Absolutely. Did I get some wrong? Absolutely. Did he get some wrong? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, that's life. That happens. And as I said, I can't speak highly enough of him as a player and as an individual.
An open side flanker basically is going to push it to the limit all the time, isn't he?
Of course.
So there's going to be some damage in terms of penalties. Has to be.
Yeah, of course. And as I said, the thing is, where he would have got some wrong where he stepped over, I would have got some wrong where I thought he'd done something, and like any player, and so that's life. That happens. And then the only thing is, you hope that it's a bit like anything there. You put a stick in the sand to say no, we're not going there, and hopefully they take the mark there, and that it's not an intentional and continuous negative tactic.
The coaches always did their homework on the referees and what their tendencies happen to be. Did you do your homework on the players?
Look, I must say, you had a general idea of who was who, but I didn't go. Some guys went to real nth degree, and I never did, because I always thought that it was important just to judge what was out there. Sure, you can have
isn't that sort of taking a bias into the game?
Of course, and if it wasn't at the forefront, it's got to be in the back of your mind there somewhere. And look, psychologists probably tell us that if you've been with a certain person all the time, that certain things would happen. You may be swayed in a decision. So for me, it was always important around going and practicing the skills about what you see that's in front of you, rather than what you think you see. And look, I said we're all fallible, we're all human. Did we get it right all the time? Did I get it right? Probably not. Definitely not. Probably not. Definitely not on occasions. But for me, the main thing was a safe environment for the players, And I would always say to the teams before the game, I'll sort out whether it's a fair fight, then you sort out whether it's even or not, because I would rather them play and have the skills and win that contest fairly than to have these negative tactics, because there's nothing more frustrating in a contest where people are just negative, where they've given up the ghost. Right, we're not going to be able to compete, so all we're going to do is just be negative and slow it down. And I can't believe any player in the world would really want to play that way. For a long period of time, I don't think you get any satisfaction.
Stu, at the core of the game is, I think, the continuity, and we all love rugby to be continuous and play with that sort of spirit, especially in the southern hemisphere. And again, I'll say in the north there's no difference there. It's just conditions can change that. In my younger days, I was a state touch referee, and you're actually a fan of the game as well, and you see play unfold. You go, well done. But occasionally, in the mind, I used to think, oh, geez, if I let this go, this is a great try, but I just can't do it because it was forward, it was marginal, but it was a forward pass, and you have to blow the whistle and cop a caning from the punters out there and the team and the fans. So, do you have those moments? I mean, do you go, oh, geez, that'd be a great try, let it go, but I've got a pinging.
Oh, look, absolutely. So
because you like you said, you're not a robot. So,
well, the role that I was doing, that as a professional you're being paid for, as an amateur I wasn't. Still love the game. Is about being a decision maker. There's nowhere in the description where it says you have to be a popular decision maker. And so the end of the day is, if it's a forward pass, it's a forward pass. That's the bottom line. If you've seen it, it might be fair and say, geez, that would be wonderful, and let that go. But it's pretty upsetting for the other 15 blokes that have worked their butt off to actually stop it down the other end. So, and then the reverse of that is obviously when you do get it right and play the advantage, or whatever else, and the players get it through and then go and score, there's no better feeling than just saying, great, I helped create some space in that and awareness of the game, and away the players went and did what they did. So,
see, to me, this is at the core of refereeing, because nothing riles me more, and I'm sure this does to you, but I'm going to go out and say it hard, is that people accusing referees of being biased against other teams. I mean, I've never met a referee, because referees just there's something about being there in control of the game, but doing it for the right reasons. But referees, they're not biased, and it's a real easy go-to for a lot of fans to say, oh, well, Stu hates us in South Africa, or Jonathan Kaplan hates the Waratahs, that sort of stuff. In the end, decisions pile up against you. Sure, they're humans, but they've got to call what's in front of them. And the temptation to then let the play go a bit to become liked must be enormous as well. But in the end, I guess you've got to be hated by everyone.
Well, look, unfortunately or unfortunately, that comes with the territory. I think the biggest thing there is, as I said, it's about decision making and not popular decision making.
You've got to develop that thick skin early, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, look, you've got people are passionate, so there's emotions. And I think at the end of the day, it's easy to go out and blame. And so
not just players, there's not just fans, they're coaches and players.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a couple of different marks. I mean, it's easy for people to blame a referee because anyone can do easy. But it takes a lot of courage for teams to actually stop and have a good look and say, geez, what did we contribute to that? And then the other thing is the reality of all of that is pretty simple. Coaches have got to get on with their players. So it's pretty rare you hear a coach at the end of the day, at the end of a game or during the week, to actually lambast one of his players and say, this bloke was hopeless, what a terrible decision, and all those sort of things, because all they do is dig their own grave within the players. From a public point of view, but I can assure you the really good teams, the high performing teams, are the ones that have those truth sessions afterwards and keep it indoors. And realistically, the thing is, if you want a bit like the old political spin, where do you want to focus the attention to? Not on my team and how poorly we did. Here we'll just drop a bomb over there, and people can talk about the refereeing, and that way, as players, as teams, we can get on and adjust what we needed to do. So that's life. As I said, it comes with the territory. The unfortunate thing is that it then permeates down into the amateur ranks, so that's probably the saddest thing to see, where teams and players are, abusing the volunteers. So I think that's an important thing to say, is just leave the volunteers alone, because without them as coaches, players, canteen managers, putting the ropes up, putting the pads on, refereeing a game, kids wouldn't have a game. So, there's some things just to be left alone.
Yeah, I'm sure if you've been anyone out there who's had a go at the referee in front of the kids and use foul language, you really need to have another look at yourself, because it's not the sort of standard you want to set, because these guys are doing it quite often, and you started out in the amateur days for no other reason than for the love of the game. And
So the other thing I would say to that is as well, just put a bit of a challenge there for people that do continually criticise and think they can do a better job, then go and have a go. It's pick up a whistle and go down. I remember when Gordon Bray, our great rugby commentator here, is a referee, and he did his badge just after I did, because he was involved in the game and commentating, and said, I want to get a bit better experience, and actually did it. And Greg Martin's done that as well up in Queensland. So what I would say is get on board and have a go, and see just how easy it is to do.
And I guess in this fluidity of the game, it's also about not being, getting a slide rule out and saying, well, I think he's a millimetre in front of the line, he's got to be offside, that sort of stuff. So you've got to, I think, use a really rough sort of thumb, he's offside, otherwise it becomes bogged down. And I think they're the sort of referees who probably legitimately need to be hauled in to say, come on, you're actually going so far. The game is played between humans on a footy field that's roughly marked. You can't break it down to that fine detail, because you're ruining the game.
Yeah. Look, that's the I guess that's the challenge as you start. There's the letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law and the spirit of the game. And so what we're trying to do is find that balance. And sometimes, two wrongs do make a right in terms of quick succession, where somebody might be offside and something happens, play on, they cancel each other out. And a lot of that comes down to experience. I mean, I know when I first started, and you look back on games that you did, and you think, God, love us, how do I even get another game? Because, it's just that experience you have and that feel for the game, and it's learning that. And then the other part is that it becomes, as I said, it's really the four pillars working together, which is coaches, administrators, players and referees. If a referee says that's the offside line, then that's where it is. Yeah. Take an extra step, have the respect for the game. And the other part around that is that a lot of the things, if you talk about SANZAR at the moment, then obviously at IRB as well, there's a playing charter, or the way the game is to be played and refereed, and players, coaches, administrators have all had a say in that. So at the end of the day, if the group has said, we don't want blokes lying around in the tackle, we don't want guys being picked up and dropped on their head, then get alignment with that and actually be a part of it. And coaches, commentators as well, at the end of the day, get on board with it as well and say, listen, that's not acceptable in the game, so stop. Referees will make mistakes, absolutely, but a lot of the times you see and hear where people just blame the referee. Oh my God, the old classic is blowing too many penalties. I wish they'd put the whistle away. To the reverse of that is, I wish they'd actually do something about this. So there's that fine line and that middle bit in between. Do players and referees get it right all the time? No, but when they do, geez, it's a good game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you agree with... sometimes Bob Dwyer has told me that he used to yell out from the grandstand a fair bit, but you can have games with a lot of penalties early that actually become a very entertaining spectacle, because you've laid the law down. Now, Stu, this is the number one beef I have with referees, is going to the pocket and threatening for 75 minutes that I'm going to take further action. And then it's about 79 minutes, they pull out a red or yellow card. I don't think that's good enough. You can't keep threatening. You've got to say, I reckon they should just pull the card out. Forget the warning. Bang, you're gone. Forget these warnings, Stu. I don't. They know what an offside rule is, what foul play is. Just pull it out and go. And then you have set the tone of the game. You're not to be messed with, and they will play by the rules, and I reckon you'll have a better game. There you go.
Good. So I agree with you around that part of the 79th minute, because then you've wasted time.
Yeah.
The team's already, it doesn't matter. you know. But there's two parts of that, and this misnomer that I always have around that of the referee set the tone of the game. We continually talk about it's a player's game. They all know what the offside law is. They all know what they should be doing.
But I think you can set the tone if you let them get away with it.
Correct. And so the point out of that is refereeing is people management, leadership, and that leadership 101 is about transferring pressure. So at the end of the day, that fellow that's given the card at the 79th minute, who's under pressure? He is. So the point is getting that balance right in terms of talking to the players, having that message at the start and that alignment around this is what's expected, this is what's not expected in the game, and setting it up before the game starts. Having the chat with the captains. What do you want to see today? Let them tell you, oh, mate, they've got to stay on side. Let's get blokes here, blah, blah. Terrific, great. We've got that established. So when you go out on the field, their team does it. Mate, I thought we had an agreement about this. And so that it's got to be the three-way agreement and alignment with those teams. And yes, then the referee has to enforce that because like anyone, and it's people in contest and in conflict, they're going to take it to the line. So you've got to put a stick in the sand earlier rather than later and say, we agreed on this is no good, and then transfer that pressure back. And there's two parts as well with those yellow cards. You can give it first up, and I've done that in games because it's cynical, it's deliberate, it's stopped it. You don't need 3 warnings over that. See you later, gone, bang. And straight away when you're actually making those decisions, why are you making it? Because you're putting the pressure back on the teams. The game doesn't deserve this. It's not fair for the other team. They were doing the right thing. You've killed the game. See you later. Off you go. And then you'll find those games then do open up because the players say, right, check one, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Okay, let's get on and play.
Yeah, number one beef. I know you're fired up. Don't bang the desk, though, Stu, because it'll deafen our listeners.
Sorry about
that. But it's my number one beef, and I just like to see referees that when they're assessed, they need to be brought to heel. You've got to be able to back up your statements immediately because they're breaking the laws of the game early. And if they get away with it, they will keep pushing it. Then the other side says, okay, he can do it, then I'm going to do it. And I reckon you just get a free-for-all. So you're not getting consistent games. And the other thing is, aren't we looking for an end goal here, Stu, of very similar games? Like we shouldn't have to do analysis on each referee. So he's going to let this go. He might give us a red card in the first minute. He won't give us a red card until the end, or he might be slacking offside. Are we trying to get the same sort of game every day, every time we play the game, rather than just on analysis of what referee will let go?
No, look, at the end of the day, I think what you're trying to do is when you've got the ball, you can do 3 things. You can run, you can pass, you can kick. And then the object is take it 100 metres down the other end and put it over the white line. Now, there's a wonderful number of ways to be able to do that and play it. And so the end result is that it's up to the players of how they want to play it. Referees referee the game, determine the players will determine how the referee referees it. So if you go out and it's a nice sunshiny day and everything else and the ball's available and players want to play, great. If they've come out, they've got the attitude they don't want to play and it's an arm wrestle and you've got to get in and make every decision, then the players have determined that as well. When you come back to the referee, then it's all around that experience and how you go. Richie McCaw started off and was a good player when he started, and he's a great player now. We used him as an example before. So do you want every number 7 to play like he does? Or do you want every number 7 to be like Israel Folau? It takes time and skill to be that good, and certainly in teams. That's why you have, there's not the number one team all the time around the world. I mean, the All Blacks are great and have that winning record, but they haven't won every World Cup, have they? Yeah. So, there's been different winners there. So it's really around the opportunity for players to play and how they want to do, and then referees to get inside of that. And again, they're going to make mistakes the same as players are. And, I was a far better referee when I finished than I was when I started because I've got X number of games and experience.
Mistakes, I think, by the referee on the field are one thing, but mistakes by the TMO I think are regarded as unacceptable because you're looking at something that everyone can see, hopefully in high definition, and you should be making the right decision. Now, I know that decisions where the ball's been grounded underneath massive bodies is much more difficult. However, I think you should go back to the old days, mate. Like, if it's under there, it's got to be a try. I mean,
Well, that hasn't changed because that's one of the
gotta
reasons
be.
we brought these two questions in were for exactly that out of the amateur days. The first one was, try, no try, because I've got no idea. I can't see where the ball is. I don't know. The other one is any reason why I can't award the try for that exact scenario. And I can tell you, and all the other referees around the world, that in plenty of games I've awarded tries where I never saw the ball grounded, but they've taken it in and marched this thing in a mall. 15, 20 metres, the thing was at the back, and bang, down they went, and somebody may have got an arm under there, but the ethos of the game and the understanding and respect was the players that scored were happy. The team that didn't score knows that at the other end they'll get exactly the same treatment because, realistically the game says and the players say there's a covenant around that listen, we're pretty sure they scored that. We're happy to concede it. So that's remained the same.
Any more technology you'd like to see in the game for the referees? Do you want to see I've always said a second referee would be interesting, but I think what you need though is you need to make sure that offside lines absolutely police so you can concentrate on the ruck. I mean, do you need more help out there?
No, I think you can't have two people running the game.
But what about ruck offside? I mean, you can't see it all. You can't see it all.
No, and same with every coach. Mate, they've got this great game plan. The game plans the two coaches have, they should win 100-0 each game because there won't be any defenders there. Everything they've practiced, and that's the sporting thing. At the end of the day, if there's such a problem with the game, if the administrators really want to tackle it and change behaviours, then you've got the laws of the game, you've got the ethos of the game. If teams or individual players are consistently contracting outside the laws of the game, then the administrators have the power to then be able to say something as simple as, we're reviewing each game. If we see your player as continually being offside or flouting the laws of the game, after they've got it now after 3 yellow cards or something, that you get an automatic suspension. You can bring in things like that from the power of the administrators to actually send a message saying we wanted to clean up the game. So therefore, if you get 3 yellow cards and they're undisputed, they are, in the UK you can challenge those yellow cards, but if it's found that it's still correct. So if you had the situation where you had 3 yellow cards, you may well say, by the way, that's an automatic 4-week suspension. Something as radical as that. So it just depends on the stand that the organisers, the leaders inside the game want to make the game better. It's all well and good for them to say, they're offside, there's this, there, the other, we'll blame the referee. But then you continue to have that same discussion week in, year out. What changes do you want? What are you prepared to do inside of the game to make those changes and to change the attitudes of players, coaches, fans to make the game better? And sometimes it may be a radical approach, but realistically, if you're doing it for the right reasons and it's an authentic change, people will accept it.
My philosophy is that I find it hard to remember, but I pretty much owned up to any mistake I made on the field or that crept into an error that would mean that I was getting away with something. So I believe in cricket you should walk if you nick the ball, and I also believe if you're in the footy field, if you knock it on, you own up. And I know that sounds ridiculous in this competitive nature that we live in, but essentially if you're not doing that, you're cheating because you're not playing by the rules. Yes, you might get away with it, but you're not playing by the rules, and I think that's a fact. You can't get around it. I know that's in this competitive world is trying to live in utopia, but I think that's a great message to send to your kids. If they're playing and they knock it on, they should own up. Because it might set their life on the right path on other things away from the field, and it's a good way to live. Now, you might do things that are accidental that you can pick up as a referee, but I believe a player should push the game to the limit, but shouldn't go over the edge where they break the rules. Steve Walsh was on this show a couple of years ago, and he said that he had no problem with players pushing it to the edge. So that'd be like flankers in particular, like your Richies, your Phil Wars, etc. Going to the edge and over it. So breaking the rules and getting an advantage. To me personally, I don't get any satisfaction about breaking the rules and winning, and I think it comes down to that. Would you like to see players take more ownership when they, in fact, breach the rules?
Look, I agree with players taking it to the edge, absolutely, because that's only how you get better. And really you're going to test people, because I mean the end result is you've got a referee there to make decisions, absolutely, and if you've got other players there as well, they're going to test them mentally, physically. So there's no issue with that. But realistically, it then just becomes, if they're not picked up, then that referee, there's a diligent process in place there now where they get feedback from a person that's there coaching them, and then you've obviously got the other two team coaches as well having a look. And so by and large, they usually get those sort of decisions right in terms of how well someone's gone, have another game next week, or go away and work on this area. So, realistically, I don't see that's an issue. I think we're probably lucky in terms of the sportsmanship with rugby. I mean, we had a path back in 2007 where there was a lot of arm waving and gesticulating, a bit like heading down the soccer path, and the IOB actually stood up and said, we're not going down that way of soccer, we will respect the match officials and you will stop this behaviour. So I think that's the great thing for rugby, and we've still maintained that ethos. So like anything there, I think if you have an opportunity, people will take it, but then it's just up to those roles, the people doing what they're meant to do. And the last point on that then is, if you do go over the edge, it's a bit like someone committing a crime and then getting upset at the judicial system because it's their fault because now they got 2 years in jail or whatever else. Hey, that's life. If you're going to take a risk versus a calculated risk at the end of the day, if you're caught, well then you've got to do the crime. That's the bottom line.
Exactly. Don't whinge about it. If you're offside of the ruck and you get pinged, then tough luck. You've gone to the edge, and I think there is a difference philosophically about going to the edge and going over it and expecting to get away with it all the time.
Correct. And if you have been picked up, then take the message, because that's all the referee can do at the end of the game. You can't control people; you can only seek their cooperation. So at the end of the time, what I would do on a field is, you talk to a player once and say, "Come on, hey, listen, get on side." Then they don't do it, then you can go back and talk to him in front of the captain. Hey, listen, I had a chat with him on our own. Now I'm bringing you in to have a discussion with him. This is not acceptable for the game. These actions aren't helping the game, whatever words you choose to use. Then you can hope that group then go away and say, fair enough, let's get on with it. And the good teams and the great games are those where players just come to play and they heed the message and off they go.
Stu, I was poking around just trying to get a couple of lines on you the other day, and there was actually a Facebook page dedicated to bagging you. It was pretty ordinary anyway, but I mean, so you got to wonder about people who do that sort of stuff. Once again, going to the core of the reason why you do the game, I mean, how did you deal with the abuse, and did it get so bad that you wanted to throw it all in?
No, never throw it in. I mean,
what were some of the worst things that were said about you? I mean, obviously with the swearing deleted, but it's pretty bad. I mean, what would be the worst thing that they could say about you?
Oh, look, the worst thing they can do is question your integrity, and so that would cut pretty deep in terms of that side of things. If it was, out in the public domain of some punter or whatever else, but if you had people inside the game then questioning your integrity, that was pretty annoying. But in terms of the rest of the stuff, look, that's life. It comes with the territory. And Peter Brock always had a great saying of, that it's none of my business what other people think of me. So at the end of the time, I'm quite happy. At the end of my career, even during my career, I could look at myself in the mirror and say, yep, I'm doing the right job for the right reasons. As I said before on here and other times, plenty of times, did I make mistakes? Absolutely. Did I learn from them? Absolutely. Did I do the best I can? Yep. And the most important thing for me was, did I go out there to make sure that the players had time and space, safe environment, and could play as they wanted to play? And I did that every time. And for me, that was a great thing. It was about the players' game, and I enjoyed what I did, had some great experiences, and if people chose to think other things, well, that's fine, and it's quite interesting on that the number of people that you run into along the way that people would meet you and then they'd say, "Oh, yeah, I used to think you're a bit of a whatever, but now I've met you." Okay, well that's great. But at the end of the day,
do you still get the red card out, mate?
No, doesn't matter, So at the end of the day, that's life, and as I said, you're there to be a decision maker, not to be liked. Just that it was just respect at the end of the day, and so I walk away with a clear conscience. And if other people want to set up Facebook pages and those sort of things, really, I'm not sure I'm that important in their life that
they're the biggest losers.
Dedicate me.
The other thing is, what has it given you? What has it added to your personality? Has it made you a tougher person? Has to.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, I think the thing around that was always had those sort of qualities around decision making, and the thing for me, it really was around that you had some values and you could stick to those values in the good times and the bad times. So when and you had a good platform to set yourself from, and I think probably the other great thing was just the life experiences. So to meet so many people in from poorer circumstances to wealthy. I mean, I remember the most ridiculous thing of, and I say that in terms of just the situation that you find yourself in, from one extreme to the other. Of on one Thursday being in Soweto, and then on Monday night, being and having dinner at the Oxford and Cambridge Club in London. So those raw life experiences. So I think that's been the great thing: the passport to the world, the travel, the growth that you get, not only as a referee inside of that, but just as a human being. That bigger picture that you see inside of stuff. So I mean, that's helped enormously in life in general, and being a better person and helping others as well along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of my mentors early on were great referees, rugby league referees. And, they copped so much abuse, and you thought, oh, geez, how do you put up with it? But, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and they're a different breed, the referees group, and they do get on with each other. And I guess there's a breed out there now that has to push the game forward. Stu, as we wrap up, I mean, what do you look to put back into the game now? I know you're forging ahead with business, but obviously you like to remain close to it.
Yeah, so look, doing a bit of coaching now back at New South Wales level, so just trying to balance that really now with probably for the next few years doing a little bit of that, just while the kids are still growing up now and being able to spend time with them, because for all the good things you get, the other things are there's a lot of time away, and that's hard on family and particularly your partner. So my wife, I'm lucky I married a genius, because she's had so much time, to almost like a single mum at times. So, want to be able to put that back into family, but also, if you've had a drink from the well, then I, firmly believe you've got to, replenish that at some point. So that's what I'm doing inside of New South Wales at the moment. And as the kids get older, and then then I'll be able to dedicate probably a bit more time to that side of things. So and then obviously looking after that side of things in the business career, because it's not like the players. If you had a number on your back, you'd probably be retired by now. But that wasn't the case for us.
Now, line for Casho, for the record down the barrel, 1 or 2 referees on the field.
One only, Casho. One only.
There you go. All right. I'm not going to give up, Casho. All right, Stuart Dickinson, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Cut a svelte figure when you were refereeing too, mate.
Oh, mate, well, I'm probably still around about the same weight I had. So I reckon I probably weigh about 2 or 3 kilos, so important to stay fit. Still, not any better looking, so that's okay. As I always say, mate, beauty's skin deep, but ugly's to the bone, so that's the way.
Exactly, there he is, Stuart Dickinson, Test and World Cup referee. It's been our pleasure to have him in the studio. Stu, all the best, mate, with the business, and thank you again.
Thanks, Stuart. Really appreciate it. Look forward to coming back again.
Yeah, there he is, Stuart Dickinson, joining us on RuggaMatrix International, episode 188. As I said, we had a few weeks off, now we're back with a vengeance. Looking to go to Europe next week as we wrap up the competitions there, a week or so after the Heineken Cup and the Premiership being decided as well. So we'll have a special guest there, and we'll look at Super Rugby and, of course, the Southern Hemisphere Test Series, and a lot of action to continue there with England and, of course, France close to home for us. What team will turn up for France? Who knows? Let's see. It'll be a 3-test series that we're looking forward to. All right, that's the show for this week. Stuart Dickinson, thank you again for joining us. And Mark Cashman will be back to join us on the program next week. Till then, enjoy your rugby.